Good morning, friends. Welcome to the second lecture of our program Samachar Manthan. This week we will be discussing issues from 10th June to 17th June, and as I have discussed in the Telegram group, that from now on, environmental and science issues will be taken by Rakesh sir, and rest of them I will take. So in this lecture, I will exclude those environmental issues and science and tech issues. You will get them in notes, and Rakesh sir will make a video on it on his iPad, and you will get it within next 1 or 2 days. So let's start with the first main issue for this week, which is Indian economy's Dutch disease problem. So this is actually a number of op-eds have been written on this last week. One came on Live Mint, one came on Indian Express, one came on Business Standard also, and I have tried to compile it, and I will try to explain the issue in this lecture. This problem was also discussed in the economic survey of this year. Therefore, it is a very important topic for your mains exam. So what do we mean by Dutch disease? So this is a term used for describing the economic situation in Netherlands in 1960s. So what happened was that in the North Sea, a large gas deposit was discovered in Netherlands. So what it really happened was that it appreciated because of gas, its export increases, and because of increase in exports, its currency appreciated, and because of appreciation of the currency, its manufacturing export declined over next 1 decade. So it ultimately worsened the manufacturing sector in Holland. That is why it is called as Dutch disease. So let's discuss this in a simple way. How do appreciation decreases exports? So when the currency appreciates, it means it becomes stronger. Its value increases. When it becomes stronger, it becomes stronger for the people outside that country. That is, for the foreigners, that currency will be expensive to buy. And since its export are valued in the local currency, the price of export also increases. And because of increase in the price of exports, the demand for export decreases. And because of the demand for export decreases, the manufacturing export or the services export declines. So any currency or any country which witnesses any appreciation in currency thanks to any resource discovery or any geopolitical event, then that currency is said to have witnessed Dutch disease. So now many economists have said that India was also facing this Dutch disease between 2014 and 2017. For 3 years, India was also facing Dutch disease because the value of rupees appreciated by 20% between 2014 and 17. And because of appreciation of rupees, our manufacturing sector lost its competitiveness with the rest of the emerging countries, because our exports became expensive for the rest of the world thanks to rupee being stronger. And why did rupee became stronger between 2014 and 17? Well, it was because of 2-3 reasons. Firstly, massive fall in the oil prices. So as you know that India is one of the largest importers of oil, and oil is one of our leading imports. And because of massive price decrease in oil, it reduced our import burden. It reduced the value of our imports. Therefore, our trade balance improved. And because of improvement in trade balance, our current account deficit declined. And because of that, the rupee increased in its values, or it appreciated. Second reason is thanks to the stable government at the center, and thanks to number of liberal FDI measures. FDI and FII both increased significantly in these 3 years. And because of massive inflow of FDI and FII, the or India witnessed capital surplus, and thanks to that our currency appreciated. So now many experts are saying that this India is finally out of this Dutch disease, because a lot of economists have said that Dutch disease played a very important role in slowdown of our economic growth in last 3 years, because our exports declined significantly, and that led to reduced production by our manufacturing or industrial sector. So now these economists are saying that the Dutch disease has finally ended in India in 2017 and 18, and rupee is one of the most weak currency in last year. And this is because of oil prices. So oil prices is again increasing. It has crossed $60 barrel. And if things are gonna go like this, it's gonna reach $80 in next few months. And because of increase in oil prices, the import has increased. The value of import, which was reduced in last 3 years, has increased. And because value of import has increased, we are witnessing trade deficit last year. And thanks to trade deficit, we are seeing the current account deficit also increase, and it is around 2% of GDP. So now the key debate, which is among the economists and the policymaker, is that what should be the value of rupee? Should the rupee be allowed to depreciate? Should the RBI interfere? Because RBI have the reserves, and if when rupee shows a free fall, or when rupee shows a free fall on any side, whether its value increases or decreases, RBI intervenes, and RBI intervenes because it has US dollars reserve, and it pumps that reserve in the market to reduce the free fall of rupees. So there are two school of thoughts. One says that India should not intervene. It should allow the rupee to free fall, because a weak currency would mean that it would give a boost to our exports. It will give a boost to our manufacturing sector, because it will make the goods of India cheaper for the rest of the world, and it will increase the demand of Indian goods. So it will ultimately give boost to Indian industries. There is second school of thought which says that India should allow the rupee to be stronger. Or the RBI should intervene and ensure that the rupee does not lose a large amount of its values. And they give a reason for that. So they say why weak currency is not a solution. So they give number of 4-5 reasons why they want rupee not to depreciate much. So first reason why what this school of thought gives, is that Indian goods. So if you take imports, most of the goods we import are either necessary goods, or these goods we don't have ability or scientific ability or technology to produce, right? So in the first, half of our the goods import are in the form of crude oil, natural gas, gold, coal, uranium, copper, and zinc. So we don't have the reserves of these minerals in India. So there is no option, but we will have to import it from the abroad. And another fourth are the things in which we don't have technological base. These include cell phones, aircraft, defense equipments, some kind of capital goods. So a weaker currency would push the prices of this good, and when the prices of this good will increase, it will reduce the demand for these goods, and when it will reduce the demand for these goods, it will lead to a broad-based slowdown in the economy. Because ultimately many of these goods are inputs. They are used as inputs in Indian industries, but with increase in prices the demand will decrease, and with decrease in the demand, it will lead to slowdown in the economy. So this school of thought says that since most of our imports are things which are necessary or which we don't have, we will have to import it. Therefore, weak currency would not have any significant impact on improving or on giving boost to India's exports or manufacturing sector. Therefore, they want that India should or the RBI should intervene, and we should have a strong rupee, or we should at least don't have a very weak rupee. So first reason is that our imports are necessary. First reason why weak currency is not a solution. Second reason why they don't want the rupee to be weak, or why they want rupee to be weak, is because on the sides of export, a third of our export comes from agriculture, another third comes from textile, leather, and two-wheelers, and a minor decrease in rupees, because there are a lot of infrastructural factors which are like lack of rules, complicated rules, lack of roads, which is inhibiting the exports from these sectors. And a weak currency would in no way give a boost to this sector, or would give a boost to export of goods from this sector. So second reason is from the export side. Also, they say that a big depreciation could disrupt the economy for the next coming years, because you know what, when rupee loses its value, it gives a bad signal to the investors, to at least to the FII investors, to the FDI investors, that the economy is not performing well. And once they receive this kind of signal, it leads to massive outflow of foreign institutional investment from a country. We have seen that in the East Asian crisis, when there was speculation that in Thailand the baht would be devalued, it led to a massive tide of FII outflow from Thailand, which created a lot of disbalance in the economy of Thailand. So third reason why they don't want rupee to be very weak is that it could disrupt the economy. So therefore, what should be the policy implication? I mean, should RBI intervene or should they not intervene? What should be? So I have collected these arguments from 3-4 articles where number of economists have suggested middle ground. So they don't want rupee to free fall, but they don't want RBI to intervene very, very frequently also. So they are proposing a middle ground that our policymakers should take. So firstly, what these experts are saying, that policymakers should not fight this real depreciation, since it's an equilibrium phenomenon. It's based on demand and supply. This free fall is because of demand and supply. There is no speculation here, right? But the RBI should ensure that there is no overshooting or there is no free fall of rupees. So if rupee changes its value by certain paisas every week or every month, there is no problem. But RBI should ensure that it does not loses 10% or 15% of its value within 1 month, because that could lead to disruption. So what policy making are saying that policymakers should ensure that true value of rupee is reached in gradual manner. Right? This is the first recommendation which the economists give. Second thing which these policymakers or these economists have suggested, that when rupee will be weak, it will lead to inflation in the country, because imports will become expensive, right? Oil will become expensive, gold will become expensive, coal will become expensive, copper will become expensive. Therefore, they have suggested that alongside weak rupee, government should go for monetary tightening. Why? Why should government go for monetary tightening? Because when there will be monetary tightening, which means that the liquidity in the economy would be reduced by the RBI, it will lead to increase in interest rate. Why? Why would it lead to interest rate? So these are conceptual things, and your basics should be very clear to understand this, because when you read newspapers and you have these kind of news every day, it becomes difficult for you to understand how these, how this phenomena works. So let me explain you how. See, generally in economy, when you have money, so money can be kept in two forms. First form is that you can have cash, and second form is that you can use that money to put it in the bank or invest anywhere. When you do that, or when you buy bond, or when you buy equity, or when you keep your money in the bank, it pays you interest rate, right? So when you have money, you have two choices. You can either have it as cash, which pays you no interest, and you can invest in bonds, equity, or bank deposit or fixed deposit, which pays you some interest rate, right? So when there is monetary tightening, which means that the total money in the economy is reduced by the RBI by increasing CRR rate or by increasing repo rate, then there is shortage of money in the economy, and you definitely require cash for doing your day-to-day activities. You can't, you have to keep some cash if you have some marriage, if you need for if you have some emergency in the hospital, you need certain amount of cash, right? So when there is shortage of money in the economy, most of the money is used for the cash, because see, when I earn 100 rupees and my monthly expenditure is 100 rupees, then I have no money to invest in bonds or equities. I only invest in bonds and equities when I have surplus money, when my day-to-day or when my monthly requirements are met. After that, the money which is remaining, I can invest that in the equity or bonds, right? So when there will be shortage of money in the economy, people will use that money, that lack of money or that less money, mostly for cash, which will reduce the demand of bonds and equities. And when the demand for bonds and equity will decrease, it would increase the interest rate which these bonds and equity will give, because that these the bond issuers or the equity issuers, they would now feel that in order to attract the people, I will have to pay him more interest rate. Otherwise, he would not come to me, because there is already shortage of money. Therefore, that the people in the economy are more interested in cash. Therefore, to induce them to buy bonds or to buy interest rate or to buy equity, I will have to pay him more interest rate. Right? That is how they will, say, okay, I will reduce my expenditure and I will save that money, or I will invest that money in the bond and equity, because they are paying me a high amount of interest rate. Right? So therefore, that is the reason whenever there is monetary tightening, it leads to increase the interest rate. When there is the opposite of this, when the money supply in the economy increases, when RBI follows a liberal monetary policy, the opposite happens. The interest rate decreases, because now there is surplus money in the economy. When there is surplus money in the economy, then you have enough money both for meeting your monthly expenditure and also for investing in bonds and equities. And because there is a lot of demand for bonds and equity, these people will get a lot of people to buy their bonds. Therefore, interest rate which they will offer will decrease, because now there is competition. There are hundreds of people who are willing to buy the bond or the equity which I am issuing. Therefore, if you don't like this low interest rate, no problem. I will find the next guy. He is willing to, invest in me, right? So when there is surplus cash or surplus money in the economy, thanks to lax or liberal monetary policy, it leads to decrease in interest rate. And in the opposite, monetary tightening, it will lead to increase in interest rate. This is how it works. So now when you read newspaper, you will be understanding exactly conceptually how this thing works. So one of the idea of this program is also to improve or to increase your conceptual or basic clarity of the issues. That is how you will be able to write good answers in your exam. Third reason why, or third, recommendation which the economists give, is that fiscal policy should not slip again. Which means that government should ensure that, with the rupee falling, government should ensure that they should not go for fiscal expansionary policies. They should continue the policy of fiscal consolidation. Because if they will go for fiscal expansionary policies, which means to increase government expenditure or to reduce taxes, it would offset the real depreciation which is happening in India, and therefore it will have no real impact on giving boost to our manufacturing sector. Now let's see how. So when there is fiscal expansionary policy, it is generally done by reducing taxes. When the taxes will reduce, it will lead to increased business activity, because the industries will earn more profit. When there will be increased business activity, the demand for currency would increase, or the demand for cash would increase, which will lead to increase in interest rate, and increase in interest rate will lead to currency appreciation. So, and currency appreciation will offset the real depreciation which will take place when rupee will weaken. Next is next policy recommendation which they give is that government should also focus on improving trade competitiveness by boosting the infrastructure, by improving the total productivity, and by assimilating into global value chains. So they say that these weak currency and strong currency, they can help you to a level, but ultimately you will have to improve your fundamentals. Why we are facing this high current account deficit is because the fundamentals in India is weak. We have bad export infrastructure. We have very complicated rules for exports and imports. We don't have any connectivity with the global value chains. So therefore, the economists are suggesting that we should focus on improving trade infrastructure in India and also in assimilating in global value chain, so that in long run we don't have this problem. Lastly, they say that we should, to ensure that we don't import much, government should focus in medium run on Indianization of defense, on Indianization of electronic goods, and on higher agriculture imports. So ultimately, Indianization in medium run would prevent that India would have any current account problem in future. So this ends the first topic of the day, which is Indian economies Dutch disease problem. Let's move to the second issue of this week, which is India Maldives ties, which is a hot topic because number of things happened last week, last month, last 2 months, last 3 months, last 6 months. A lot of happenings have been taking place, which makes this topic very important for your mains exam this year, also probably next year. So what are the recent developments that are happening in last few months? So last week it emerged that the Maldives immigration authority. So I think before understanding what is happening last week, let's start from 2012. That will how you will understand what is happening now, because there's no point in dealing with it. So in 2012, in 2008, a democracy came to Maldives, and Mohammad Nasheed, who was a very pro-Indian guy, came to power in Maldives. In 2012, in a coup, he was deposed, and a new guy called Wahid came to power. So Wahid was his vice president. He came to power after deposing Nasheed in a military coup. Now things started going bad for India since 2012. So Wahid was he started the policy of tilting Maldives towards China. So the first issue of contention which came between India and Maldives was the airport issue. So the airport in Maldives in Male was being developed by GMR, but Yamin, and the contract was given by the earlier regime of Nasheed. So Wahid, when he came to power, he cancelled the contract and he gave the contract to a Chinese company, and GMR lost crores of rupees in that. So in India, first of all, you cancel the license of a company, and secondly, you give that license to a Chinese company. So definitely it hurt the sentiments in India. Now in 2013, there were elections, and in that election, Nasheed lost again, and Abdullah Yamin came to power. And Abdullah Yamin, since 2013, is running the Maldives in a very autocratic or a emergency kind of way. So he is more of there's a new term now in international politics, which is a democrator. So these are people who are elected democratically, but once they are elected, they function like an autocratic. So the biggest example of this is Erdogan, Putin, Netanyahu. So Abdullah Yamin is also kind of a democrator, though he was elected democratically, but since he assumed power, he is behaving more of like a dictator. So in 2015, Nasheed was sentenced to 13 years of jail, and India was again irked by that because India was a close ally of Nasheed, and it said that free and fair trial should be done. And they gave us they gave a statement in favor of Nasheed, which also of the ruling establishment in Maldives. Now let's come to 2017. In 2017, something very very in 2015, one more thing happened because of perceived closeness of Maldives to China. Modi, after assuming power, he went to all the countries in the neighborhood except Maldives to showcase a message to Maldives that we are not happy with what you are doing in last 2-3 years. So 2015, Modi skipped or Modi cancelled his Maldives visit. Now in 2017, December, Supreme Court of Maldives gave a verdict in which it said that all the opposition leaders which were jailed or which were imprisoned or which have cases against them, they set free them, and they said there's not substantial evidence against them, therefore they allowed them to go out of the prison. This was not liked by the incumbent government of Abdullah Tajabi, and he refused to accept the orders of Supreme Court, and instead he imposed emergency in Maldives. This was 2018 Feb. So he invoked emergency in Maldives. Naturally, when emergency was invoked, these opposition leaders were tortured, and India again issued a very strong statement saying that that Maldives should respect the democratic institutions in the country, including the judiciary. Again, India's statement irked Maldives, and in March 2018, Maldives started this policy of rejecting or not increasing the duration of work visa of India of Indians. So there, as you know, that Maldives is known for their beautiful resorts and hospitality industry, and around 4,000 Indians, and there are I think more than that, are working in these hospitality industries in Maldives. But Maldives, as a as a consequence of India's issuing strong statement against the emergency, it stopped issuing work visa for Indians who got a job in Maldives, and it also because a lot of workers who are working there, their visa expired, they refused to reissue the visa for them. It again irked the Indians. One more thing which irked the Indians was another step taken by Maldives in April, which was that India gave 2 helicopters to Maldives for maintaining its internal security, but Maldives returned back those 2 helicopters back to India. While Maldives gave the reason that we don't need that kind of helicopter, but the real reason why they returned 2 helicopters back was because to use that helicopter, it would require few Indian Navy or Air Force personals to be in Maldives, and Maldives did not like that Indian Army or Indian Navy or Indian Air Force personals staying inside the Maldives. That is why they returned the helicopters back. One more theory is that China was imposing pressure on Maldives to return back the helicopters to India. Now, so what happened recently this week was that there was this vote in the UN Security Council. So as you know, in Security Council, there are permanent members, which are 5 countries, and there are non-permanent members, which are generally selected from Asia, Africa, and South America, and some of them are even small countries. So Maldives contested the election for the post of becoming non-permanent member in the Security Council, and Indonesia also contested. But India voted for Indonesia rather than voting for Maldives, which with it always enjoyed very close relations in the international scenario, in that arena. So what happened in June was that India supported Indonesia in UNSC bid. And this was considered as India's reply to the activities which Maldives have been doing from last 6 months. That we will not support you to be members of UN Security Council. So what are the two internal developments which have in the recent past which has concerned India significantly? So firstly, there is this first reason is that there is Islamist radicalization which is increasing in Maldives. So Maldives, as you know, are ethnically they are very close to people living in Lakshadweep. The language is also quite similar, and they always followed a very moderate form of Sunni Islam over the years. But in last few years, thanks to Wahhabism, Wahhabi and Pakistani funded madrasas, there is increase in Wahhabist, or there is increase in the influence of Wahhabist ideology in Maldives. And Wahhabism, as you know, emerged in Saudi Arabia in 18th century, and it is the most extreme or most orthodox form of Islam, because Saudi Arabia was a Wahhabist country. So Wahhabism believed that Islam should be completely eradicated from the outside influence of any other religion, any other culture, and we should follow same form of Islam which was followed in the 6th century or the 7th century AD. So a lot of these Al Qaeda, ISIS, all of them are inspired by this Wahhabist ideology. So India is concerned that rise in Wahhabist ideology is leading to a lot of members from Maldives joining ISIS. So there have been around 200 members from Maldives who are joining ISIS, and it's a big number because it's just a country of 300,000. Probably from India there are just 50 or 30 members which have joined, and we have 20 crore Muslims, and in Maldives there's like 300,000 people, and out of the 200 have joined ISIS. This is a concern for India. Second concern which India have is that thanks to some terrorist infrastructure developing in Maldives, it could provide sanctuary to terrorists of Indian Mujahideen or Simi, because now that Indian government has been talking tough against them from last 8-9 years, these the operatives of Indian Mujahideen and Simi, which used to go to Pakistan earlier, now they can infiltrate to, or now they can go to Maldives as a safe camp. If India and Maldives relations decrease or it declines in future, probably Maldives government would also not work in this regard, and they will not be cooperative to India in sending these terrorists back to India. Second reason why India is concerned because of Islamic radicalization is that there is a possibility that Lashkar-e-Taiba may use the remote Maldivian islands as a launch pad for terror attacks against India. So in Maldives, there are a lot of islands which are uninhabited, and it's very close to Indian mainland also. So the Lashkar-e-Taiba could, because of increase in Wahhabism influence, Lashkar-e-Taiba operatives could go to or could make one of these islands as their base, and from that base, it can launch the terrorist attacks to India. And if that would happen, that would be a big concern for India. Second thing which concerned India is increasing role of China. So China is spreading wide and great. So let's understand this with a map. Here is India. Here is Maldives. And China, as you know, have been following string of pearls policy because they have a base at Gwadar, they have a base at Chittagong, at Coco Island, at Hambantota, and also they are in talks with Maldives to have a base at Maldives. So as you know that China, a lot of Maldives is located at a very strategic location. A lot of vessels from the Gulf region passes through Maldives, and therefore China wants to ensure that it gets its oil without any much hindrance. Therefore, it is developing strong relations with Maldives. Secondly, it wants to have a check on India thanks to a string of pearls policy. Therefore, it wants to have a close relationship with Maldives. The difference between Indian intervention and Chinese intervention is that China goes to Maldives and says that, see, we have got a lot of money, we have got a lot of yuan, we want to invest in your country, we want your country to develop, and we want our businesses to get benefit. We won't interfere in your internal political affair. You have democracy, you have Wahhabism, you have dictatorship, you have anything. As long as your regime is friendly to us, we won't interfere in your internal politics. That's why Maldives is very happy. Maldives are getting a lot of money from China. Plus, there is zero interference of China in their domestic political affairs. India, on the other hand, they don't have much money also to offer. And secondly, they have their sides that they like Nasheed. They want Nasheed to be in power. That is why it is irking Maldives more, and that is why Maldives is going more to, or is developing more closeness to China. And the biggest example of that was the China Maldives FTA signed in December 2017. So Maldives signed a free trade agreement with China before even signing that from India, or before even signing that with India. That also hurt India because it would increase already Chinese products are increasing in Maldives. This would further, flood the Maldivian market with Chinese goods. Secondly, China has also developed, or it is developing, a friendship bridge, or China Maldives. So it's a bridge between the airport and the main city. China is developing that. Also, Maldives has become partner in the Chinese maritime Silk Route policy. It is the Chinese tourists are now the largest number of tourists in Maldives. Also, in 2015, Maldives amended its constitution and it allowed the foreigners to own land, including this will lead to more Chinese investors buying land in Maldives. Third reason why India is irked is because of increasing closeness of Maldives with Pakistan. So the army chief of Pakistan visited Maldives recently. And it offered also some sellout of arms to Maldives. So India has been hurt because India has always ensured that Pakistan does not have any influence on Maldives. It should be India which should have major influence on Maldives. So all these things are making India and Maldives apart from each other, and that is a problem, that is a main concern which we are having in this policy of this government, that every neighbor of India is now alienated from us. We don't have good relations with Nepal, we don't have good with Pakistan, we don't have good with Maldives, we have problems with Sri Lanka, we have problems with Bangladesh. So that is a problem. If we want to become a global power, we should at least in our backyard, these countries should be able to support us. If they will be anti to us, and how will we think of becoming a global power? So what should be the way forward for us? Firstly, India must see that India should not repeat the mistakes which it did in Nepal. So Nepal, we used hard power, we used the blockade to ensure that the government in Nepalese should accept our demand. We should not do that in Maldives, because these steps, these hard tracks, these hard bites alienate the people more from India. Because India already they consider as big brother, the big bully of the region. When they do this kind of activity, it further alienates the people from India. So we should not repeat the mistake of which we did in Nepal. Secondly, we should not have favorites. This is also one thing which we should work on. We should not have favorite leaders in a country. Like in Bangladesh, we have been, completely showing to all the political parties in Bangladesh that we are with Sheikh Hasina. Sheikh Hasina. Sheikh Hasina is our ally. Sheikh Hasina is our friend. Now, what it happens is that suppose tomorrow Sheikh Hasina loses power and Begum comes, Khalida Jia comes. Khalida Jia would know that India was very close to Sheikh Hasina. Now I will be very close to China because they are my enemies. So this is the problem. That is also happening in Maldives. When you have showcased yourself, when you have completely exposed yourself to be complete friend of Nasheed, then you alienate other political parties and leaders in Maldives. That is what is happening. So this is also a problem, that Maldives, we should not have any favorite. We should be willing to work with anyone which comes to power. We should be like China. Whether you are democracy, dictatorship, as long as you are not doing anti-India step, we are very much willing to support you, even if you oppress your opponents. Third is, just like China, we should not or interfering in the domestic affairs of the country should be our last resort. We should not interfere in the internal affairs of. We should be willing. See, Maldives is very close to us. China is very far from Maldives. India could support Maldives economically in a very plausible way, practical way. It's not practical for China to have a very solid economic relations with Maldives, but we can do that. So we should focus on increasing economic bonanza, or in giving economic bonanza to Maldives, so that Maldives thinks that it is better to be with India, or any regime in Maldives would think that it would be better to be close to India rather than having close relations with China. Let's move to the next issue of this week, which is water crisis. India faces worst water crisis. Niti Aayog report says that. So Niti Aayog report says that India is facing one of the worst crises, or one of the worst water crises in the history. And it says that by 2030, what does the report say? We'll discuss that. It says by 2030, the demand for potable water with outsupply the supply, and we would have a lot of people in India which will not have access to potable drinking water. Second thing which the government says is that nearly, or what this the report says is that 2 lakh people in India die because of drinking inadequate water. And thirdly, it says that 21 Indian cities, including Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, will run out of groundwater by 2020, and therefore it will affect 100 million people. And fourthly, it says that this water crisis would affect 6% of India's GDP by 2050. So it ranked the state, the report ranked the state into, it tracked 24 states, and its report finding says that Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, and Madhya Pradesh are the best performing states in terms of water conservation. And it said that states like Jharkhand, Bihar, and Haryana are the worst performing states. So Gujarat, Andhra, and Madhya Pradesh are the best performing states, while Jharkhand, Bihar, and Haryana are the worst performing states. So, what are the reasons for the scarcity of water in India in recent times? Firstly, there is a lack of pricing of water. So, lack of pricing of water is because of populist policy of the government. So there are a number of policies, there are a number of governments like the Delhi government and other, which gives water for free. And because of lack of pricing, there is overutilization of water, and overutilization of water is leading to scarcity. Second reason is drought in the better performing state. So we know that the better performing states are Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, all of them, and Maharashtra and Karnataka, all of them are facing droughts in last few years. And because of droughts, we have scarcity, we have water scarcity problem. Third reason is failure of the drip irrigation. So drip irrigation, as you know, is a very, very water conservation saving irrigation technique, right? It saves a lot of 60 to 70% more water than the regular irrigation. Problem in India is that drip irrigation is expensive in terms of installation, and secondly, it needs to know technical know-how for managing. Therefore, it is not adopted widely in India. A lot of farmers have not, and the government is also not supportive of it. Government can give subsidy of millions and billions of dollars to the corporates, but it is not giving the required subsidy required for drip irrigation. So if state government can chip in and say that we will bear the 50% of the cost, rest the farmer will bear, it would definitely give boost to drip irrigation in India. Israel is a prime example of that. In Israel, drip irrigation is widely used. Next is erratic monsoon and climate change. So as you know, that number of reports have said that climate change is for real, and because of climate change we are having erratic monsoons sometimes have monsoon those, or we have rainfall in those months which are supposedly dry months, and we have hardly any rain on months which are supposedly the rainfall months. And because of lack of rainfall, it is leading to rivers being dry, insufficient replenishment of the groundwater, etc. Next is poor planning and leakage. You know that Shimla is facing a lot of water scarcity problem recently, and it has said that there will be no further tourists which will come. The reason is because there is lack of planning, and there is a lot of leakage in their water supply system. So there is one estimate which says that around 25% of water in Shimla is wasted due to leakage in the pipelines. Delhi wastes 40% of its water because of leakage problem. Next is improper waste water treatment. So in Israel, 86% of its water which is used for industrial purpose is recycled, and that treated water is used in agriculture. In India, 70% of the urban sewage is untreated, and it is sheer waste, right? And lastly, wrong policies of the government, which would mean the government is giving MSP to rice and wheat and sugarcane, and this is incentivizing the farmers to grow them even in those areas where there is water scarcity. So because rice and sugarcane requires a decent amount of water, and if they will be grown in areas where there is water scarcity, it will further worsen the condition. That is happening in Punjab, Haryana, Western Maharashtra. All these areas, Karnataka, are not known for very high rainfalls. And when you grow these sugar canes there, that will create a problem. What is the way forward we will discuss now. So first way forward is that India should focus on drip irrigation. And this would mean that India, the government should chip in, should provide subsidies to the manufacturers, to the farmers, and bear some of the cost so that it becomes affordable for the farmers to implement. Next, what we require is wastewater recycle. So we should take help of Israel, learn their technology, and ensure that the water which is used in industry is recycled Same thing happens in RO. In RO, when you purify the water, 70% of the water is wasted by the RO system. So what we need is, we need to see that wastewater is treated again, and it is used at least for agriculture and industrial use. Third thing which we require, or which we need to implement, is some of the innovative technologies, so we can have extract water from the air and the fog. So in air, you know that in the air there is always humidity, there is always moisture. So there are some technologies which are developed by Israel. There's a machine which is developed. What does this machine do? It extracts the humidity or the moisture in the air, and then it converts that into water. That is how Israel, being a desert country, has a surplus quantity of water in it. Second thing, which is what Peru does. So in Peru, in some areas in Peru, there is hardly any rainfall, but there are a lot of fogs. And what they have developed is that these fogs contain a lot of moisture. So they have developed a technology through which they chip, or they squeeze out that moisture, and that converts them into rain. So we should also learn these adaptive technologies from Peru. Also, like Israel, we could install desalination plants in the coastal areas of India. So Israel has done that, and India is also planning to do that in Tamil Nadu. And lastly, to prevent leakage, proper team with skilled workers should be assigned the job of maintenance and repair of the pipelines. These are the innovative solutions which I gave. Rest you can, you know it very well: planting trees, rainwater harvesting, creating social awareness. These are things which you know you will write. Let's move to the next topic, which is the rising risk to financing India's current account deficit. So this was a report in Business Standard and Enlightenment that there are rising risks to financing India's current account deficit. So as you know that current account in India is increasing significantly, and we have reached 2%. We have crossed 2% level this year. This is a surprising development, because the last year there was 1 month where we had current account surplus. So this deficit is a really new thing for India. So why is current account deficit increasing? There are two reasons for that, as we have discussed in the first lecture also, in the first topic also. First is oil prices, which is raising India's import bill. And second is increasing protectionism in the world. So increasing protectionism is leading to what? It is leading to lack of access for India's exports. And that is also hurting India's growth potential. Now, what are the consequences of uh, high current account deficit. First of all, uh, it will lead to depreciation of rupee, right? Which will be effective India positively and negatively. Positively, how it could give boost to India's exports, and negatively because it could lead to inflation problem in India. Second consequence of this high current account deficit is that it would give a bad signal to the investors. As we have discussed in the first topic, how in Thailand it happened, where weakening rupee was leading to massive outflow of foreign institutional investors from Thailand. So it could lead to volatility in the economy, or volatility in the economy. And thirdly, it would increase the cost of borrowing abroad. So, as you know, thanks to cheaper interest rate and liberal ECB norms, a lot of Indian investors are buying abroad. It will increase the cost of borrowing for them being abroad. But more importantly, CAD has increased. That is not a problem. We have seen current account deficit reaching 5-6% earlier. The problem is that now the financing of current account deficit has become more riskier than it was earlier, and that we will look now. So in the earlier times, when the when we had current account deficit, it was usually compensated by rise in FDI into India. So as you know that a balance of payment is zero. So there is current account and there is capital account. So if there is negative in current account, there is positive in capital account, right? This is how it works. In short run, this value could be negative, or positive, but in long run, it has to be zero. Now, earlier, what used to happen that whenever we used to had big deficit in the current account, we always had inflow of FDI, which used to compensate for the negativeness or the deficit in the current account. But now, FDI flow has reduced last year. Now most of the financing, or now most of the reliance that we are having is on short-term portfolio investment. Or the FIIs. Because you know that capital account contains FDI plus FII. FDI are long term, they are stable, they don't run away every day. They are, because you do investment, you make a airport or 5-star hotel or something, a big city, you will not run away one day. But FIIs are always looking for better opportunities. If they think that Indian market has become more volatile, they will run away next day. Right? This is a real problem, that they will run away every day or any day whenever they find, if they find any market to be more better, or if they find some problem in India. Now the problem is that US Treasury is also increasing the interest rate. Now, since US Treasury is increasing its interest rate, therefore, there is a very good chance that these FIIs would also flow back to US or the other Western countries. Because US Treasury bonds are the most safest asset. and investors were not investing in US because the interest rate was very low from last 6-7 years. But now US Treasury has increased the interest rate of these bonds, and with that there will be a lot of flow from these emerging countries. A lot of investors which had invested in emerging countries, they would again go back to the US Treasury, or they will buy the US Treasury bonds. This would mean that we have a problem of current account deficit. FDI is slowing down. FII will, in most probability, run away when the US Treasury will increase the interest rate. Therefore, how would we finance that current account deficit? This is a $1 million question. That is a problem we are kind of facing, right? Let's move to the next topic, which is 18th SCO Summit. So 18th SCO Summit recently took place in uh, Qingdao in China, and Prime Minister Modi also visited. And being a very important regional international organization, this is a very important topic for your mates. They also adopted this uh, Qingdao Declaration, which we will discuss in the later part. So, as we start with any topic, we start with SCO. What is SCO? What are the why India joined SCO? What advantages India got? What weaknesses or challenges of India being member of SCO? So, SCO is a Eurasian economic, political, and military organization. The first part will be important for your prelims because that is what they ask. Its headquarters is in Beijing, and it is established in 2001. It had 8 countries: China, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Russia, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan, and now 2 more countries have added in 2016: India and Pakistan. So now there are 8 countries in SCO. To remember this, that Afghanistan is not the member of SCO. There are 6 countries which are member of 6 plus 2, now 8 countries which are member of SCO. Now, as per Chinese and the Russian scholars, SCO would be a military alliance kind of thing, which would counter the US influence in the Central Asian region, which will counter the NATO forces in the global world. While the and it is considered as an anti-West kind of thing. According to the Chinese scholars, the focus of SCO would be on 3 evils: terrorism, separatism, and extremism. This will be the main focus of SCO. So according to the West, it is more of an anti-West alliance of countries. According to the Chinese according to the Chinese scholar, it is an alliance of countries of the region to successfully fight extremism, terrorism in the region, and to have economic cooperation with each other. So what are the advantages which India get by being member of SCO? First advantage is that it is in line with the Connect Central Asia policy of the Indian government. So Indian government has launched Connect Central Asia policy in 2012, I guess, and according to which there will be more high-level visits between the leaders of India and Central Asian countries. There will be more connectivity. There will be more trade, more cultural exchange, etc., etc. So this SCO, by being member of SCO, every year Indian Prime Minister would meet the head of the states of these countries of Central Asia, and this would increase the diplomatic engagement between India and these countries. Next part or next reason how India would benefit is that it would give economic boost to both India and the Central Asian members. So these Central Asian countries, they have a lot of minerals and resources, and India is generally deficient in that. So India can get, by being member of SCO and having closer engagement with the countries of Central Asia, we could get minerals and resources from these countries. In return, these countries would benefit because has a very large market. So these countries would get market, and India would get these resources, these minerals at a cheaper price. Also, since these Central Asian countries are emerging, some of them are showing very high economic growth, it would provide opportunity for Indian companies to invest in Central Asia. So that is why through SCO we could, ensure we can see that those pipelines which were in dormant phase, they could be reignited. Third is ensuring energy security. So as you know that India is deficient in energy, we import a lot of our oil and gas requirements, and these countries are very rich in oil and gas. Therefore, India through SCO, it could reignite the Iran, Pakistan, India pipeline, or the Chabahar port, or the Tapi pipeline, and through which India could get access to the oil and gas reserves of this, or even the fertilizer reserves of this country to fulfill its demand. Fourthly, and how would these countries benefit? Because they are actually over dependent on China as their market. So having India would mean that they would have a diversified market. Next is dealing with terrorism and extremism. So as you know that Central Asian countries were very secular because they were under the Soviet Union. So the religion was always a subdued force in these countries. I remember I went to Kazakhstan and in Ramadan, and I did not saw anyone fasting or anyone doing or wearing hijab. So but in recent years there has been change in this, and there have been, thanks to ISIS, thanks to rise of Wahhabism, there have been tendencies of extremist forces rising up in these countries. So we have Islamic movement of Uzbekistan, Hizbut Tahrir, all these are having bases in Central Asia. Therefore, India, being a victim of terrorism itself, have a very good experience. So we both can share, expertise with each other in the SCO forum. And SCO, as you know, always has a RATS, which is Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure, or the aim of that RATS is to promote cooperation of member states against three evils of terrorism, separatism, and extremism. So therefore, participation in RATS would provide India with number of intelligence, number of expertise, which would help in joint fighting of terrorism. Next we have stability in Afghanistan. So Afghanistan, as you know, is after the withdrawal of NATO forces, it will be have an uncertain future because Taliban is rising its ugly head again, and therefore it would require the cooperation of the neighboring countries of Afghanistan to ensure that Afghanistan remains stable. So therefore, in SCO summit, India could always take the case of rehabilitation, or it can always talk about Afghanistan problem, because after the US will go, China is talking with Pakistan to have a closer cooperation with in Afghanistan. In SCO, through SCO, India could talk to China and say, hey, let's have a common cooperation program in Afghanistan. We stable Afghanistan is in good interest of all the countries of the region, because when Afghanistan is unstable, it could lead to extremist tendencies all across the neighboring countries. Therefore, jointly, all these countries in the SCO forum, they could have a common ground, or they could have a common policy of cooperation in Afghanistan. What are the challenges slash demerits? First is that this organization is dominated by China. Therefore, India will not have a much say in the organization. It will be China who will be dominating. China will have the more say, and even if India will have any alternative policy, in most regard, China would reject that. Secondly, since Pakistan is a member, it would provide a veto to any of India's innovative solutions, like it did that in SARC. So in SARC, as you know, that SARC has been made dormant or unproductive thanks to Pakistan obstructionist tendencies, and that we will face in Afghanistan also. So that will face in SCO also. Also, it will since it's a military organization, it would give a wrong message to the West, because it is perceived to be an anti-West organization. So it would decrease the good factor, the feel-good factor of India in the West. Let's come to the contemporary issue, which is the outcomes of the Qingdao summit of SCO. So Qingdao summit is for security. So let's have first we will deal with security. What are the security outcomes of the summit? So in terms of security outcomes, there was Qingdao declaration which was issued, and in the declaration, the leaders of the member state called for prioritizing the implementation of cooperation program to fight terrorism, separatism and extremism for 2019 to 2021, and speeding up of the speeding up of the convention, SCO convention on countering extremism. So all these member states have called for a convention which needs to be signed, and that convention should focus on countering extremism in the region. So it's SCO convention on countering extremism. Also, recently all these countries, member countries, they participated in the bilateral and multilateral anti-terror drills, and this was done in China in 2017 December. India also attended this drill, and through this multilateral and bilateral drills, there will be greater cooperation among the defense forces of these member countries. Third outcome was that India has said, again it said, that there should be centrality of Afghanistan issue during the SCO talks. It also praised the brave actions taken by the president of Afghanistan, and he hoped that these steps would be respected by all the states in the region. So India again raised the issue of Afghanistan in the SCO. It talked about how a stable Afghanistan would be in the interest of all the countries in the region. Next is economic development. So when you talk of economic development, the SCO in this summit said that it is against any kind of trade protectionism, and it says, and it also condemned backlash against the globalization problem. So the joint statement of SCO said, for streamlining trade procedures, it also said that the trade procedure should be made more simple. During this summit, India and China also met with each other, and they signed a MOU on export of non-basmati rice from India. So China has actually banned the export of non-basmati rice from India because of it imposed phytosanitary norms on that, and this is hurting India because already we don't export much to China. We have having this trade imbalance problem. So MOU was signed between India and China. Second MOU was signed on sharing of hydrological information on Brahmaputra. This is also a wrong. I mean, during the Doklam summit, China stopped sharing hydrological information on Brahmaputra from India. So now a new MOU was signed, which China would again restart the sharing of water flow, how much water is there in Brahmaputra to India. Next we have is connectivity. So India was the only member during this summit which did not endorse the China's one belt one road policy or one road one belt scheme. So this was again a significant thing because all other members agreed with the China's one belt one road thing, but India said that though we are not in principle opposed to this, but it should respect the sovereignty and the integrity of the countries of the region. The indication of India was towards the CPEC, or the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which will also flow to the POK, which India considers as its integral part. Also, on this in this summit, India and Uzbekistan signed an MOU, and these both countries held talks about arrangements which will be done through which India and Uzbekistan will trade with each other. So they talked on how Chabahar port could be used as a port for trade, for improving trade relations between India and Uzbekistan. Next is uniting the people. So the Doklam, as you know, as it uh, increased the tension between India and China. So in this, through this SCO forum, it somehow again normalized the relations between India and China. Also, uh, SCO media forum was held in Beijing recently. India also announced that India said that only 6% of its foreign tourists comes from SCO countries. Therefore, to improve this statistics, India will plan to organize a SCO food festival and SCO Buddhist festival in India. So this ends this topic. Let's move to the next topic, which is Cabinet approves proposal for enactment of Dam Safety Bill. So dam safety bill is being introduced in the parliament. So there are like 5,200 dams big dams in India, and 450 are under construction. Also, there are a lot of small dams also, but because of lack of legal and institutional architecture for dam safety, it's a concern because there is hardly any national level body which regulates the safety procedures of these dams. There is hardly any legal process, legal laws which ensures that proper safety measures are taken while constructing the dam. An unsafe dam has led to number of disasters. Number of people have been killed, number of animals have been killed, a number of villages have been drowned. So therefore we need a proper regulatory architecture for dams in India, and that is why this bill has been brought about by the government. So what are the key features of this key features of this bill? So this bill provides for establishment of National Committee on Dam Safety. So it has recommended establishing 4 institutions in India. First is National Committee on Dam Safety. Second is National Dam Safety Authority. Third is State Committee on Dam Safety. And fourth is State Dam Safety Authority. So what would these committee do, or what would this organization do? So when we talk of National Committee on Dam Safety, it will evolve dam safety policies in India. It would recommend the necessary regulations as may be required for the purpose. So it will be an advisory body which will suggest the government what policy you should make, right? Next is the National Dam Safety Authority, which will be a regulatory body which will ensure that the dams of state government dams, small dams, big dams, they are following the appropriate safety procedures or not. So it will implement the policy, it will implement the guidelines, it will implement the standards for dam safety in India. And what would the state dams safety or state committee on dam safety do? So it will ensure proper surveillance, inspection, operation, and maintenance of all specified dams in the state and ensure their safe functioning. Also, so yeah, these are the main authorities which will be established under this bill. So what will be the benefit of this bill? So it will help the states and the UTs to have a uniform dam safety policy in India. So right now, each country, each state has their own kind of policy. There is hardly any coordination. Some are good, some are liberal, some are bad. So with this, there will be a uniform. Every state will have a uniform regulatory laws. There will be proper oversee of them. So this will help in. This will ensure that there will be no further damage in next coming years. Second thing is that this will help in safeguarding human life, livestock, and property. And as you know, because number of the Chennai floods of 2015 was also because of release of unprecedented water from the Chimbara Bakkam Dam into the Adir. So one reason was also the release of a lot of dam water. Why this bill has been criticized by a number of political parties? Well, this is because dam and dam safety and these are the topics which are under the state list. Therefore, the regional leaders, especially in Tamil Nadu and Kerala, they are opposing the bill because they say that through this, the center has been encroaching on the state subject, because dam safety is our responsibility. Why should we have a national body which tells us what to do? Right? So that is why they are saying that this bill would violate the federalism in India. It will violate the concept of federalism in India. So now we will come to the last main issue for the day. There are two environmental issues which should be dealt by Rakesh sir. This is a kind of a sociological topic, which is why suicides happen. So this was one very good report on LifeMint which came. So it's related to sociology, and there has been rise in suicides in India. So it could be a topic for your essay or your mail. So according to the World Health Organization stats, around 8 lakh people commit suicide every year. Out of this, 1,35,000 are in India, which is 17% of the total suicides. And the more concerning thing is that the suicide rate between 87 to 2007 increased from 7 to 9 to 10 to 3 per 1 lakh. So, what are the causes of committing suicide? So, let's talk of the main causes of suicides. First is depression. So depression is not just, so you have mood swings, everybody has mood swings, but depression is when you have mood swings for a long period of time, when you have and when it is very frequent, then it can be called as a depression. And a lot of the WHO report says that depression is one of the main causes of suicides, right? Problem in India is that depression, a lot of people have depression, but because of social taboo, because depression is considered a kind of a mental illness, but because of social taboos, a lot of people who have this problem of depression don't go to the hospitals. They don't, consult a counselor. They don't consult a psychiatrist because they feel that it's a small problem. But generally, this small problem leads to suicides. That is what the WHO reports say. Next cause is substance abuse. So generally, taking drugs, alcohol, basically drugs is one of the reason why people suicide. After taking drugs, they do something which they think when they are sober, but when they are drunk, they get the courage to do that. So a lot of people who do suicides, a large amount of them, a large majority of them do it under the influence of drugs or alcohol, because when they use that, they get this kind of that fearlessness to commit suicide, which they don't generally generate when they are in a sober mood. Third is personal and professional stress. So you might have read in newspaper recently one UPSC aspirant committed suicide because he got late for the prelims exam, and because of that he took that so seriously that he kind of ended his life. So professional stresses, which means if you are failing in your professional life, if you have some economical issue, if you have some other issues, personal would involve relationship issues. So somebody whose girlfriend or wife or boyfriend or husband left them, they usually take these extreme steps. It usually happens in small cities. So all these are also uh, one of the very important reasons why people do suicides. Next is the childhood trauma. So study of WHO says that those people who have undergone childhood trauma like torture, mental torture, emotional abuse, physical abuse, bullying at school, they are much more prone to suicides because they are emotionally weak, and because of that they are more prone to suicides when they face any challenge in their later stages of life. Next is societal reasons. So as you know that in India we used to had joint family system few years back or few decades back, but now in the age of industrialization and modernization, we are having more of nuclear families. A lot of people are not willing to live with their parents. A lot of them are migrated from villages to cities. When they live alone in a nuclear family or they live alone, they don't have this emotional support which they used to get when they were in the joint family. And many of them have their families, very far away from them. They are alone. They are more, they don't have any emotional support. They feel alienated. Many of them feel alienated and lonely, and because of that they commit this extreme thing or they take this extreme step. Next we have is idealization. So this is a very rare cause, but it happens. So recently, you must have read in the newspaper that uh, one guy in Bengal committed suicide because Argentina lost in the World Cup. So these are the people who are, because they're fan, they idolize. So there was this incident in Andhra Pradesh where when YSR died, some 90 people or 80 people committed suicide because they could not think of living without their idol. So this is also a small reason why there are suicides. Next is the idea of connected but disconnected. So right now in this era, we don't have much physical relations with the people. We don't meet them physically. We have more of a, what you call as web-based relationship. So a lot of people, especially UPSC aspirants, when they open their face, that is why I always advise that if you are preparing, don't spend much time on Facebook, because when you spend time on Facebook, you see people, your friends, traveling all across the world, having the fun of their life, and you are sitting in a small room and studying the whole day. So you get jealous, you get, you feel like your life is worthless, everybody's, and if you have failures, so if somebody is preparing for 5 years, he has seen failure, he knows that he has wasted his 5 years, he has achieved nothing, and there are people who are enjoying their life. This ultimately, to some people, motivate them to end their life because they consider their life to be worthless. Last is genes. So the study says that some people with some kind of genes have a more tendency towards committing suicides. So what are the way forward for that? How could we prevent suicide? First of all, we need to educate people about suicide. We should educate how, when they have suicidal tendencies, what are the risk factors. So there should be education in schools, in colleges, which should focus on suicides, that in what condition, in what circumstances you have this tendency of suicide, and how to curb that tendency. So first is education. Second is there should be increase in the number of counseling homes or centers which can counsel the people who have tendency or who have risk or who are thinking about suicide. We could also have a government helpline which could, which should have free access, and anybody who's having this feeling should call that number for the counseling purpose. Also, reducing the domestic violence, substance abuse, and the divorce are long-term solutions to reduce the mental health problems which are responsible for suicides. Also, the government should have intervention, focused intervention on high risk group. So like government knows that people who have failed UPSC, who have some relationship problem, who have some traumatic experience, they should be a data of these high risk people, and they should be regularly counseled by the government helpline number. Next is promoting joint family system. So this is a common topic. Rest you can add it, or there could be some antidepressant which helps your mood to improve. they can be given to the people who are in a high risk position. So this ends the main topics of the week. There are two more main topics which will be taken by Rakesh sir. So I will start with prelims issues now. So first and the last issue will be dealt by Rakesh sir because it relates to science. I will start with the second issue, which is government introduces new scheme which is Seva Bhoj Yojana. So Seva Bhoj Yojana, it aims to seek, or the scheme seeks to reimburse central share of CGST and IGST on food, prasad, langar, bhandara offered by religious and charitable institutes. So right now, the government bhandara or the bhandara which you see in the Gurudwara, they are, there is a GST which is invoked on them or imposed on them. So this scheme will ensure that all these bhandaras, all these, in temples, in mosques, you have this thing. This is exempted from GST. So there are things which are important for prelims is that the ministry is the Ministry of Culture, not the Ministry of Finance. So you think because it is related to GST, it will come under finance? No, it's under the Ministry of Culture. Now, what is the criteria for recognizing that they are charitable or religious institutions? So first is it includes temples, gurdwaras, mosques, church, dargah, mutt, monasteries, which have been existence for at least 5 years before applying for financial assistance or exemption. So they should be established for 5 years. Second thing is that they should serve free food to at least 5,000 people in a month. These are the criteria for recognizing. Now, so next issue is Rail Madad. So Rail Madad is an app which has been developed by Railway Ministry and Coal, and it aims to expedite and streamline passengers' grievance redressal. So how it would function? So anyone, it is a kind of a mobile app, and any passenger who face any problem, they can register their complaints through mobile phone / web. So it has also, once you register a complaint, you will receive a SMS which will see that, which will give a kind of thing that okay, we have received your complaint. So you will be sure that the complaint you have registered has actually reached to the railway department, and then after that it will receive a message in few hours or few days about the action taken by the railway department on your complaint. So this is a very, very important thing. And then after that, what it does is that in a month, so monthly, there will be a proper analysis of the kinds of complaints which the passengers are registering in this app. So this will be done for what? Because if there is a lot of complaint on food, that food in Rajdhani is not good. If suppose you have received 500 complaints about that, so it will help the railway in improving its implementation, improving its services. So if it will receive 500 complaints, then the railway will call a meeting of the officials and say, see, we are receiving so many complaints, it means there is some problem in the food quality of Rajdhani, therefore we will have to improve it. We may kind of cancel the tender of the person who is supplying the food. We may tell him, we will give him a warning that please improve your food, otherwise your license will be cancelled. In this way, the problems which the passengers are the macro problems which the passengers are facing, these will be resolved in next few months. This rail madad will also have display helpline number, so if you don't have net or something, you can also call and register your complaints. So this ends this. Next issue is that India to host first BIMSTEC war games in September. So India will holds the first military exercise of all the countries of BIMSTEC, and the focus of this activity would be on counter terrorism. So it will be, in this exercise, the army chief of all the 7 countries will will take part, and it will be held in Pune. Let's move to the next issue, which is 3,000 additional utter tinkering labs has been announced. So this is this scheme. First, we'll talk about the scheme, because without that, there's no point in telling you the recent thing. So Atal Tinkering Lab is the scheme under Atal Innovation Mission, and it is implemented by Niti Aayog. And the key objective of this scheme is to build relevant skills among students between class 6 to class 12, and to provide access to technology that will enable solutions. So there will be labs which will be established in schools, and in these labs they will have access to things like good labs, good activities. They will have access to technologies like 3D painting, robotics, Internet of Things, micro procedures. Main idea of this program is to develop research oriented ability in youngsters. Problem in India is that the books are very, people mark the science and then they don't know how it works in the practical environment. And in the West, it's complete opposite. They spend much of their time on labs and less on the classrooms. So therefore, the idea of this labs is that it will provide them with these modern technologies to the youngsters, so that they can develop interest for research when they grow up. Right? This is what is the main idea behind the scheme. So the news is that 3,000 additional schools have been established or have been selected for establishment of Atal Tinkering Labs, and now there are 5,441 schools which have this Atal Tinkering Lab. Next is 10 new Swachh iconic places launched. So, Swachh Iconic Places is an initiative under the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. And what does it do? It is a special cleanup. So the focus of this program is that those places which have some spiritual heritage or cultural places, they should be clean as possible. So special focus would be given to those historical, spiritual, religious or cultural places. And the idea is the same, which is the idea of Swachh Bharat mission, to make them clean, to make them open, defecation free, to provide proper drinking water facilities in these places. So this program is coordinated by Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation in coordination with, or it's a collaborative project with other ministries, and these ministries are Ministries of Housing and Urban Affairs, the Ministry of Tourism, and Ministry of Culture. So these four ministries are involved in implementation of this scheme. So in 2016, phase 1 kind of started, which included number of places like Ajmer Sharif, CST Mumbai, Golden Temple, Vaishno Devi, Taj Mahal, etc. In second phase, number of institutes like Charminar, the convent and church of St. Francis, Gangotri, Somnath temple were included. Now the government has launched the third phase of this project. Under this, there have been number of places which are there. You can read it in the notes. Next issue is the new norms for college teachers. So the UGC has brought new set of regulations to alter the condition of recruitment and promotion of college and university teachers. So what are the new norms? First is that research will no longer be mandatory for college teachers for the promotion. Second thing is that the college teachers will be graded on teaching rather than research. So it is based on the feedback of the students and how many people passed from their in their class. Thirdly, they can earn grades for other activities like social work, helping in adoption of village, helping students in extracurricular activities, contributing teaching material to Swayam platform. And fourthly, the regulations will make teaching hours flexible. Also, under the new norm, those Indians who have been awarded a research degree or doctoral degree from any of top 500 institutes in the world will automatically, they will get opportunity to teach in any college in India. They will not have to pass the NET exam. Let's move to the next news, which is that cabinet approves repositioning of Northeast Council. So Northeast Council, as you know, was established in 71. It's a statutory body. It's kind of like we have this zonal council, right? North zonal council, West zonal council. For Northeast, we have special zonal council, which is called as Northeast Council. And so right now, it contains seven Northeast states and one Sikkim. So right now, the chairman of this now Northeast Council was the Minister for Northeastern Affairs, Northeast Region Affairs. But now, with the change, Home Minister will be the chairman of this Northeast Council. So earlier it used to be the Minister of Northeastern Region Affairs. Now it will be the Home Minister who will be the chairman. The Vice Chairman would be the Minister of Northeast Affairs. Next we have is that Niti Aayog to launch Composite Water Management Index. So Niti Aayog has come up with a composite water management, because as we know that there is a problem of scarcity of water. So this water index would, it would be a tool to assess and improve the performance in efficient management of water resources. It will give direction to the state that, see, you are performing really bad, you need to improve. It will also invoke competitive spirit among the states, that, oh, Rajasthan is doing so well with so less rainfall, we should also try to improve next year so that our ranking would be better than Rajasthan. So it would invoke a competitive spirit among the states. So what are the what are the sectors which are prioritized? So there are around 10 areas which are prioritized, on the basis of which composite water management index will be released for the states. These 10 sectors are restoration of water bodies, groundwater, major and medium irrigation, watershed development, participatory irrigation practices, rural drinking water, sustainable on-farm water use practices, urban water supply and sanitation, policy and governance. These are the 10 areas based on which composite, or based on which the states will be ranked, or based on which the index would be released. Next is government launches Swajal scheme in 115 aspirational districts. So the scheme has been launched in 115 districts, and the scheme will be under the National Rural Drinking Water Program. So right now, this will be what will be the main component. This scheme would be community owned, which means that the pipelines which will be established by the government, it will be owned by the community or the panchayati system. They would be responsible for maintenance, repair, everything, and under it 90% of the project cost would be undertaken by the government, central government, and 10% of the cost the local community will have to bear. Also under the scheme, the government aims to provide villages with piped water supply, which are powered by harnessing solar technology or solar energy. And for maintaining those pipelines under the scheme, a number of technicians in the villages will be trained to handle and maintain those pipelines. So in the first phase, 115 districts are selected, and these are mostly left-wing extremist districts, or northeast, or in Kashmir, or those districts which are backward in terms of parameters. Next is Surya Kiran, which is a military exercise. So it has been recently conducted. So it's a military exercise between armies of India and Nepal. And this year the exercise was conducted in Pithoragarh. Next we have is Wi-Fi Chopal. This is very important. So Wi-Fi Chopal is a government initiative that provides Wi-Fi hotspots in rural areas where people can access net by paying some plan. So how this will work? Suppose there is X village there, right? In that X village, government will decide that these 50 meters will be a Wi-Fi zone, right? And in that 50 meters, you can bring your stuff, your mobile, your laptop, and you can work there. But you will have to pay some price. You will have to pay some price. So you can, if you need very less internet, there are plans as low as rupees 10. And if you want to have unlimited access, you can have plan for rupees 900. So it starts from rupees 10, where you will have 500 MB of access every month, and you can pay 900 for having unlimited access, right? So there will be a Wi-Fi zone in each of the villages of India. And what will be the benefit of this scheme? Definitely it will create, or it will provide them a lot of online facilities. Like they can get access to, they can register their FIR online, they can get their documents or get their certificates online, they could do the activities of post offices online. So this will help them, and they can receive this tele-education or telemedicine online. So who is implementing this? This will be implemented by Department of Telecommunication. So according to the kind of basic document, there will be one Wi-Fi hotspot in those gram panchayat which have a population of up to 1000. There will be 2 in those panchayats which have 3500. There will be 3 which in those which have 7500, and there will be 5 in those panchayats which have a population of more than 12,000. So this ends the topics for this week. We'll meet next week. Thank you.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update from Civil State.